What happens when one of Hollywood's most recognizable actresses arrives expecting a friendly conversation, only to find herself caught in one of the most uncomfortable interviews of her career? Jennifer Lawrence believed she was appearing on The View to promote her newest movie, but Joy Behar seemed determined to take the conversation in a very different direction. What began as an ordinary promotional interview quickly turned into a tense exchange that left the audience visibly stunned. By the end, the atmosphere inside the studio had completely changed. The morning initially seemed completely normal. Jennifer entered the studio with the confidence audiences had come to expect from her, dressed in a polished black blazer and greeting everyone with her familiar smile. Promotional appearances were nothing new for her. She had spent years sitting across from hosts, discussing movies, careers, and life in Hollywood. The View had often been a comfortable stop for celebrities, but this particular appearance carried a noticeably different energy. As Jennifer took her seat, she noticed Joy Behar's expression. Instead of the usual welcoming demeanor, Joy appeared serious and intensely focused. Papers were arranged in front of her as she prepared for the interview. "Welcome back to The View. We're here with Jennifer Lawrence," Joy began. Her tone immediately sounded more serious than expected. "Jennifer, thanks for joining us. I have to say, though, some of your recent comments have certainly attracted attention." Jennifer gave a polite smile and said she was happy to be there and excited to discuss her new film. "We'll get to the movie," Joy responded, waving her hand. "But first, I want to talk about your comments concerning the wage gap in Hollywood. You've been very outspoken about receiving less money than some of your male co-stars." Jennifer carefully explained that she believed conversations about equal pay were important, particularly because women in many industries continued to face unequal treatment. Joy leaned forward. "But you're an extremely successful actress," she said. "You've earned tens of millions of dollars. Do you really think complaining about your salary is something ordinary working people can relate to?" The mood in the studio immediately shifted. Jennifer's expression became more serious, but she remained composed. "I think the point is being misunderstood," she replied. "It isn't simply about the amount of money I personally receive, it's about whether people doing comparable work are being treated equally." Joy rolled her eyes. "You're one of the highest paid actresses in the world, and you're talking about being treated unfairly," she said. "Do you understand how that might sound to someone working 2 jobs just to survive?" Jennifer straightened in her chair. "I never said I was a victim," she responded. "I'm talking about a larger problem that affects women throughout different industries. Being successful doesn't mean I should stop talking about inequality." Joy immediately challenged the argument. "You signed the contracts voluntarily. You had agents, lawyers, and managers representing you. If you believed you deserved more money, why didn't you negotiate harder?" The other hosts appeared increasingly uncomfortable as the exchange continued. Jennifer remained calm, explaining that negotiations do not always happen on equal ground. "When men negotiate aggressively, they can be viewed as confident businessmen," she said. "Women can face a completely different reaction. They can be called difficult, demanding, or unreasonable for doing the same thing." Joy dismissed the explanation. "There it is again," she said. "The victim argument. You're an adult who made your own choices. At some point, people have to take responsibility for those decisions." Jennifer's patience was beginning to wear thin. "I'm taking responsibility," she replied firmly. "I'm also using the platform I have to talk about problems that affect other women. This isn't only about Hollywood." Joy laughed sharply. "Your platform is built on pretending to be other people," she said. "You're an actress. You play characters for a living. Maybe you should stick to acting instead of lecturing everyone about workplace equality." A wave of surprise moved through the audience. Jennifer's hands tightened together in her lap, but she continued to maintain her composure. "That's incredibly dismissive," she said. "Acting is my profession, and I believe every profession deserves respect. More importantly, anyone with a public platform has some responsibility for how they use it." Joy narrowed her eyes. "Responsibility also means appreciating opportunities that millions of people will never have," she replied. "It means remembering where your success came from and not criticizing the system that gave you those opportunities." Jennifer looked genuinely taken aback. "The system that feeds me," she repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. The tension in the studio had now become impossible to ignore. What had started as a discussion about a new movie had transformed into a confrontation over money, privilege, equality, and the responsibility that comes with having a public voice. "Joy, I worked for everything I have," Jennifer said, her voice firm despite the growing tension. "I started acting when I was 14. Every opportunity I received came from years of dedication, preparation, and hard work. And luck?" Joy immediately interrupted. "Let's not pretend luck had nothing to do with it. There are countless talented people who never get their big break. You were fortunate enough to have the right appearance, the right circumstances, and the right people notice you at the right time. Don't act like success is based entirely on merit. Jennifer stared at her for several seconds, clearly struggling to process the accusation. I honestly can't believe I'm hearing this, she said. You should believe it, Joy replied, leaning back confidently. I'm simply saying what a lot of people are thinking. You're privileged, Jennifer. Extremely privileged. So when you complain about earning millions instead of earning even more millions, ordinary people may find that difficult to sympathize with. Jennifer's expression hardened. This interview was supposed to be about my new movie, she said. Why are you making this personal? I'm not making it personal, Joy responded, although her tone remained sharp. I'm asking you to recognize your circumstances. Have some perspective. Have some humility. Think about how these complaints sound to someone struggling to keep a roof over their head. Jennifer paused and took a long breath, clearly making an effort to remain calm. I understand that I'm fortunate, she said. I have never denied that. But being fortunate doesn't mean I lose the right to advocate for fairness. If anything, having a large platform means I have an even greater responsibility to speak when I see something that needs to change. Speak, Joy repeated sarcastically. Jennifer, you're not a civil rights leader. You're a wealthy actress talking about not receiving a larger portion of an already enormous paycheck. The remark immediately changed Jennifer's expression. Her face went pale before anger slowly appeared. How dare you, she said quietly. The studio became completely silent. How dare you make that comparison and then use it to mock what I'm saying? You just minimized my concerns while also reducing the significance of the people who actually fought for civil rights. For the first time, Joy seemed momentarily caught off guard, but the hesitation disappeared almost immediately. So now I can't point out the difference between serious social struggles and problems inside Hollywood. You can point out whatever you want, Jennifer replied. But you don't get to decide what I'm allowed to care about. You don't get to tell me that because I'm successful, I'm supposed to remain silent whenever I see something unfair. Injustice. Joy laughed. Jennifer, listen to yourself. You're describing salary negotiations as injustice while people in other parts of the world are fighting for basic human rights. That finally pushed Jennifer beyond the point of simply defending herself. She stood suddenly, causing her chair to roll backward. That's exactly the problem, she said. You're acting as though caring about one issue means I'm forbidden from caring about another. You're telling me that success requires silence and gratitude. That isn't how progress happens. Sit down, Joy ordered sharply. We're not finished. Actually, we are, Jennifer replied, remaining on her feet. She explained that she had come to the program expecting to discuss her work and her new film, not to be personally attacked by someone who appeared unwilling to engage with her actual argument. Joy's expression darkened. Excuse me, I'm conducting this interview, not you. This is my show, then conduct it professionally, Jennifer answered immediately. Stop performing for the audience and start engaging with what I'm actually saying. Don't twist my words simply to create a confrontation. The tension became overwhelming. The other hosts remained unusually quiet, seemingly uncertain about whether stepping in would make the situation better or worse. The cameras continued recording as the exchange became increasingly intense. Performing, Joy repeated, raising her voice. I'm asking legitimate questions about statements you made publicly. You're uncomfortable because you're not used to being challenged. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Don't tell me I've never been challenged, she said. I've spent roughly 15 years in the public eye. I've dealt with criticism, judgment, headlines, and scrutiny constantly. I know exactly what criticism feels like. She paused before continuing. But what you're doing isn't simply challenging my opinion. It feels like an ambush. An ambush, Joy repeated as she stood from her chair as well. I'm asking you to defend your position. If you're going to make these statements publicly, then you should be prepared to explain them. I can defend my position perfectly well, Jennifer said, her voice now controlled and confident. Equal pay for equal work isn't some outrageous idea. It's a basic principle of fairness. The fact that you're treating it as spoiled Hollywood complaining says much more about your perspective than it does about mine. Joy's expression became even more intense. Don't lecture me about fairness, she said. I've worked in television longer than you've been alive. I've fought real battles involving women's rights. I didn't spend my career complaining about receiving 8 figures instead of 9. Jennifer listened without interrupting. Then, instead of responding with another angry remark, her expression softened slightly. And I respect that, she said sincerely. I genuinely do. But I don't believe your battles have to cancel out mine. Different generations face different challenges, and speaking about one problem doesn't erase the struggles that came before it. I'm not asking anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm asking people to recognize that fairness should matter even when the person raising the issue happens to be successful. I genuinely respect what you've accomplished, Jennifer said, her voice controlled. But your experiences don't give you permission to dismiss the experiences of other women. If anything, everything you went through should make you more compassionate, not more judgmental. For a moment, Joy appeared caught off guard by Jennifer's sincerity. But the pause lasted only briefly before her expression hardened again. Compassion for what? Joy replied sarcastically. Your struggle to afford another luxury house. The remark clearly struck a nerve. Jennifer's composure weakened, and she looked directly at Joy. You know what, Joy? This was never about money. And you know that, Jennifer said. It's about respect. It's about recognition. It's about the principle that people should be compensated according to their contribution and talent rather than being treated differently because of their gender. Principle? Joy scoffed. Jennifer, you live inside a bubble. You have assistants handling your schedule, stylists choosing your clothes, and drivers taking you wherever you need to go. Don't lecture me about principles when you haven't experienced ordinary life in years. Jennifer's expression became noticeably more serious. The real world, she replied. Joy, I grew up in Kentucky. My family struggled financially. Before I landed my first acting opportunity, I worked and did whatever I could to get by. I know what hardship looks like, and I know how fortunate I am to have reached the position I'm in today. She paused before adding, but escaping financial hardship doesn't mean I'm required to forget about people who are still dealing with it. Joy waved her hand dismissively. Oh, come on. You started acting when you were 14. You've spent your entire adult life surrounded by Hollywood. Surrounded by Hollywood. Jennifer repeated, disbelief audible in her voice. Do you have any idea what it's like to enter this industry as a young woman? She continued without waiting. Do you know what women have dealt with during auditions? The inappropriate remarks, the constant criticism of their bodies and appearance, the pressure to look perfect, the anxiety, and the unrealistic expectations. There are women who have struggled with serious emotional and physical consequences because of those pressures. The Joy rolled her eyes. Spare me the tragic Hollywood story. Every industry has difficult situations. Jennifer's tone became quieter, but somehow more forceful. You're right. Every industry has challenges, but not every industry has documented differences in how women and men are compensated. Not every workplace has such obvious disparities that researchers can measure them. Joy immediately pushed back. Those statistics can be misleading. They don't always account for different jobs, experience, responsibilities, or negotiating ability. Jennifer looked at her with disbelief. Negotiating ability. Listen to what you're saying. You're actually making my argument for me. You're suggesting that women receive less because they supposedly aren't as good at negotiating rather than examining why their contributions may be valued differently in the first place. Maybe women do need to negotiate better. Joy replied with a shrug. Maybe they need to become more assertive instead of complaining about the result afterward. A low murmur spread through the audience. People exchanged uncomfortable looks as the discussion became increasingly personal. Become more assertive. Jennifer repeated slowly. Joy, what do you think I'm doing right now? What do you think speaking publicly about pay equality is? She leaned slightly forward. I'm standing up for myself. I'm standing up for women who have repeatedly been told to accept whatever they're offered and be grateful for it. Whatever they're offered. Joy exclaimed. You call tens of millions of dollars scraps. When my male co-star receives substantially more for the same production, yes, I believe the difference matters. Jennifer answered firmly. And again, it isn't simply about the number on the paycheck. It's about what that difference communicates about how each person's contribution is valued. The Joy shook her head in frustration. This is exactly what's wrong with your generation. Everything has to be perfectly equal. Everything has to be fair. Life isn't fair, Jennifer. Business isn't fair. You have to accept reality. Life isn't always fair. Jennifer agreed. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying to make it fairer. She continued. That's the entire idea behind progress. It's why societies create laws against discrimination. It's why people have fought for civil rights and workplace protections. Improvement only happens when people decide that unfair systems shouldn't simply be accepted. Then Jennifer added a pointed remark. And isn't that supposedly one of the reasons journalists are expected to challenge powerful institutions? The comment immediately changed Joy's expression. Don't you dare question my journalism credentials, you little princess, Joy snapped. The insult seemed to hang in the air. Jennifer became completely still. Little princess, she repeated quietly. Her voice was calm, but the tension in the room intensified. Did you really just call me a little princess on national television? No one immediately responded. The audience fell silent, and even the atmosphere around the camera seemed frozen. Joy appeared to realize that she had crossed a line, but pride kept her from retreating. "If the description fits," Joy replied defiantly. Her voice, however, no longer carried the same confidence. Jennifer slowly moved closer to the desk. When she spoke again, her voice was low and measured. "Let me tell you something about this so-called little princess." She paused. "This little princess has worked extremely long days since she was 14. This little princess has dealt with periods of intense anxiety and pressure. This little princess has had adults make inappropriate comments about her appearance from a very young age." Jennifer's eyes remained fixed on Joy. "And this little princess has repeatedly been called difficult, demanding, or ungrateful simply for asking to receive the same professional respect and compensation that male colleagues were given without the same level of scrutiny." Joy shifted in her chair, visibly uncomfortable, but she continued trying to maintain her defiant posture. "Everyone has problems, Jennifer." Jennifer nodded slowly. "You're right, everyone does," she said. "That's exactly why dismissing someone else's experience simply because they're successful is wrong. Having money doesn't erase pressure, discrimination, or the responsibility to speak about problems that affect people beyond yourself. Everyone has problems," Jennifer said, keeping her voice steady, "but not everyone has the platform to speak about those problems. Not everyone gets the opportunity to be heard. When someone in my position talks about inequality, it isn't simply complaining. I believe it's a responsibility." "Responsibility to whom?" Joy asked, although her voice was noticeably less aggressive than before. "To the women who come after me," Jennifer replied. "To every young actress entering this business who deserves to understand her value. To every woman in every profession who has been told to accept less and be grateful. And even to the younger version of myself, who signed agreements without fully understanding what she was worth, because nobody had taught her how to recognize her value." Joy appeared to sense that she was losing control of the interview. "Look, Jennifer, all I'm saying is that perspective matters," she said. "Context matters." "Context," Jennifer repeated, her voice rising again. "You want context, Joy? Let's talk about it." She leaned forward. "While you're sitting here criticizing me for speaking about pay equality, there are women right now sitting across from producers and executives being offered dramatically less than their male colleagues. Some of them stay silent because they've watched successful women get attacked publicly whenever they dare to demand equal treatment." "That isn't what I'm doing," Joy protested. "Isn't it?" Jennifer responded. "You've called me entitled, privileged, ungrateful, and even a little princess simply because I said I believe women should receive equal compensation for equal work. How exactly is that different from tearing someone down for speaking up?" The Joy looked around the studio. The mood had shifted dramatically. Audience members and production staff appeared uncomfortable, while the other hosts watched closely. "I'm trying to bring balance to this discussion," Joy insisted. "Balance." Jennifer gave a short laugh, but there was no amusement in her expression. "There's a major difference between offering another perspective and being hostile. There's a difference between challenging an argument and attacking the person making it." She continued, "Throughout this interview, you haven't simply questioned my position. You've repeatedly tried to diminish my experiences instead of seriously discussing them." "I have discussed them," Joy insisted. "I've asked you difficult questions." "No," Jennifer replied firmly. "You've made assumptions about my character. You've dismissed what I've experienced. You've mocked my profession and questioned my motives. That isn't responsible journalism. That's bullying." The word seemed to affect Joy immediately. "Bullying? I'm not bullying you," Joy said. "I'm challenging you." "Challenging me," Jennifer repeated, sounding genuinely stunned. "You've called me tone-deaf, entitled, lucky, privileged, and ungrateful. You mocked my career and questioned the amount of effort it took to get here. You suggested that I should simply accept what I have and stop speaking about inequality. If that is your definition of challenging someone, then I would hate to know what you consider an actual attack." Joy opened her mouth but hesitated. For several seconds she had no response. Jennifer continued. "And do you know what makes this especially disappointing, Joy? You're a woman. You work in media, an industry that has experienced its own struggles with gender equality. You should understand this better than almost anyone." Her voice remained firm. "Instead, you're repeating some of the same attitudes that have been used against women for generations." "I've spent my career fighting for women's rights," Joy said quietly. "Have you?" Jennifer asked. "Or have you mainly fought for women who share your experiences, your background, and your opinions? Because right now, you're attacking another woman for advocating equality. You're telling her to stay quiet and be grateful. I don't understand how that represents fighting for women's rights." Joy's face became noticeably pale. "I just think there are bigger issues," she said. "Bigger issues to whom?" Jennifer replied. "Bigger than fairness, bigger than equality, Bigger than making sure talented women receive the same respect and consideration as talented men. There are people dying, Joy answered. There are wars, poverty, and serious injustices happening all over the world. Jennifer slowly shook her head. You realize what you just did, right? You used the existence of other serious problems to dismiss this one. If we followed that logic, we would never address any issue unless it happened to be the most important problem on Earth. Oh, she paused. That isn't how progress happens. Society improves because people are willing to address problems at different levels instead of waiting for every other problem to disappear first. The Joy looked down toward the desk, avoiding Jennifer's gaze. Jennifer's tone softened slightly. I came here expecting to talk about my work. I wanted to discuss my film, connect with the audience, and share something I care about. Instead, this interview has felt more like an interrogation. You questioned my character, my intentions, and even whether I had the right to speak about issues affecting women. She looked around the studio. But you were right about one thing. I am privileged. I am incredibly fortunate. I'm grateful every day for the opportunities I've received. But being privileged doesn't prevent me from caring about equality. If anything, it gives me an even greater reason to use my voice responsibly. Jennifer then turned toward the main camera. To anyone watching who has ever been told that they're too successful to complain, too fortunate to speak out, or too privileged to advocate for others, don't accept that idea. Success doesn't erase your right to speak about unfairness. Having advantages doesn't mean you should ignore people who are still struggling. And being grateful for what you have doesn't mean you have to accept less than you deserve. She turned back toward Joy. Thank you for having me here. I hope future conversations can be more respectful for everyone involved. With that, Jennifer stepped away from the set, leaving Joy seated behind the desk. The studio remained unusually quiet as everyone processed what had just happened. After several moments, Whoopi finally broke the silence. Well, that was certainly something, she said quietly before announcing that the program would take a commercial break. Once the cameras stopped, Joy remained at the desk, staring down at the papers in front of her, while the audience continued talking among themselves. What had been intended as a routine promotional interview had transformed into a deeply uncomfortable confrontation about success, equality, privilege, and the responsibility that comes with having a public voice. Jennifer had arrived to promote a movie, but she left after making it clear that success would not stop her from defending what she believed was fair. Joy, meanwhile, was left facing the consequences of an interview that had gone far beyond tough questioning, and into territory that had left the entire studio deeply unsettled.